Hi, this is Rabbi Rami Goldberg, and welcome to Biblical Money, powered by Israel 365, where we take a deep dive into how people of faith enhance their business by staying true to their biblical principles. We interview leading CEOs, executives, and entrepreneurs to capture their wisdom to help us live our most fulfilled and faithful lives. Please like and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date and informed. Hi, everyone. I am Rabbi Rami Goldberg here at Israel 365 with Biblical Money, coming to you where we discuss with CEOs, entrepreneurs, and executives matters of faith, Bible and business, faith and finance. And today we have Keith Biggers. Keith has started a number of different companies in the healthcare related industries, and we'd love to hear your story and how you keep it all real, how you keep it all together, and both in terms of your faith and profitability, right? Those are both two important aspects of the business.
Very much, very much.
So tell us a little bit about your background. How'd you get where you are, and take us to the present day?
I grew up in a very small community in West Texas, and my dad had his own business, and I guess kind of learned from him. He always said, go work with a big corporation, and yet that's not what he did. And so instead of listening to what he said, I listened to what he did and have his own business. So I think that was kind of always in me. As you can see behind me, this is a gas pump. My dad owned a Conoco service station. We lived in a little farming community, so he sold tractor tires and Firestone tires to the farmers, and so it was a nice little business there in my hometown, and worked for him from the time I was old enough to go to the gas station and work and repair flat tires and wash windshields and pump gas and all those kind of things. And of course, I was always looking for tips, from washing windshields or whatever needed to be done. And he would pay me based on production. So that's, again, I think part of my upbringing was if I produced, then you have an income. If you don't produce, you don't. And so I think from a very, very young age, I understood that. I say I had lived in a very small town there. And I always say my dad taught me how to work. I had like a second dad who worked for, he was a rural mail carrier, and his input in my life was how to have fun. He taught me how to play tennis, to play basketball and football and all the fun things that when you grow up in a small town in West Texas, it's kind of part of life. So those were my two bigger influences.
So it's interesting you have that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yes.
Where he tells a story of two dads. So it sounds like you had two dads, but yours was work dad and fun dad.
It's
maybe you could write
My fun dad was a rural mail carrier. I say he actually changed my diaper when I was 2 years old, going on the mail route with him. And the goal was to get done as quickly as we possibly could so we could go play tennis and have fun. When I was from the time I was 8 or 9 years old, he was an older gentleman even at that point, very small, but just was very strategic in what he did. So he would line up tennis matches for us in the big city, Lubbock nearby, and here was this little kid, this old man.
Lubbock was the big city, just so we understand.
Oh yeah, Lubbock was the big city. Yeah, my hometown was 1,200 people. I graduated with 35 kids. We grew up in I call it Mayberry RFD, if anybody knows that old television show. That just I had a great upbringing. And when I was coming home from school, I wouldn't go to my home. I would go to my dad's business. My dad was the entrepreneur, and my mom was his bookkeeper. So that was my after-school time with them. And then whenever that I didn't have to work, then I would go with my second dad to play tennis in the big city, and he would line up matches for us. And here's this old man, this young kid. We would do very well. We'd clean their clock, so it was fun. Great way to grow up.
Right. It's always fun showing up in the raggedy jersey. The rural kid who just wipes the floor with everybody. Right.
So it was a lot of fun. And then I think we discussed before. The other big influences for me in my growing up years were my coaches. And one of my football coaches and basketball coaches were very influential. I was the quarterback of the football team, and they believed in me when nobody else did and gave me opportunities. And actually just went to the funeral of my football coach recently that just influenced my life from high school on, and we stayed very, very close and very, very instrumental in helping me sort out issues and strategies and that kind of thing, because that's what he did as a coach. My basketball coach, on the other hand, was similar to that. We're still very close, and he was the one that got me actually interested in going to the Air Force Academy right out of high school, which was a big honor for me. And it wasn't my cup of tea. I realized pretty quickly I'm very independent, especially want people telling me what to do. So the Air Force Academy was a great experience, but it's one of those where I knew fairly quickly. I went there to play tennis. I didn't realize that all these restrictions and rules were going to be a part of it as well. But it was a great experience.
You realize you got to clean your shoes and make your bed, right? As well.
That's right. Had to have the quarter bounce off your bed. Had to be perfectly done. So it was quite a 5 chews per bite. I mean, it was a very regimented, orderly lifestyle, and was not really what I was. I don't think what I was meant to be.
I think you probably learned some really important skills from something like that, where even for whatever shorter period of time, it's just something where you can't compare to having that, like, okay, day in, day out. I'll just tell you one very interesting teaching is one of the sacrifice that we bring is the daily sacrifice. It talks about it in, I believe, in Leviticus. And it says you have to bring one in the morning and one in the afternoon. And it's called the korban, which means in Hebrew is a sacrifice, tamid, which means always or consistent. So it was called the consistent sacrifice, and because it was brought in the morning and afternoon. And one of the teachings is that this is something, it's the most important of the sacrifices because it was daily. It was a regimen. It was every single day you get up, you do in the morning and afternoon. Your shoes look a certain way, and that's something where on the one hand, entrepreneurs need to break rules, and on the other hand, they need to follow them. So it's
very much. I still make my bed every morning. It's one of the rules. I typically have my clothes laid out the night before. That's again, one of the things my dad was very intent on was polished shoes. So I always have my shoes polished. That's kind of a thing. And of course, that was the Air Force Academy. I mean, you had to have polished shoes. I mean, that was a big deal. The other lesson I learned there was, no man left behind. I mean, part of the regimen there were some guys that came to the academy that were bookworms and very smart, but weren't very physical. So basically, as a squadron, you would go out and run with rifles and these very strenuous drills that we had to do. And if anybody fell behind, we would literally pick them up and carry them with us. And that was just part of what you went through and part of the training that you received there, just the discipline of it all. And there's no doubt it changed my life dramatically, because I grew up and I have a sister that's 14 years older than I am. I was the baby. My motto is, I'm the baby, you got to love me. So, I mean, I could do no wrong in a lot of ways. So the Air Force Academy is really good for me because it made me realize there's a lot more to life than what I grew up with and understood in my little world. So it was very, very helpful. So I went on to finish college there, and as I mentioned to you before, something that changed my life very quickly after that. My dad died 2 days after I graduated from college, and so it was a traumatic event for me, somebody that I loved and respected. And then about 2.5 years later, my mom was murdered in my little hometown, which those things just never happened in that environment. It was just shocking. So even to this day, we still don't understand what happened with my mom and never could find out who murdered her and how all that came about. But back in those days, the way I grew up, you left your keys in the car. We never locked our houses. I mean, it was just a great community and environment, and it just was a total shock to not only to me, but the whole community in that area. As a very young man, I had to really grow up quickly, even though, and I do think that the Air Force Academy really helped me even process some of the things I was going through with my parents' deaths. So really changed my life very quickly and dramatically. And it was shortly after that a couple of young guys hired me to start a new business, and they became kind of big brothers, almost parental influences for me. They had recently converted their lives from lives of debauchery to Christian life and living, and they were even known as the Jesus Brothers. And so they really impacted my life. The whole our business, it was the first business that I had been a part of right out of college, and our business was kind of built on biblical values and treating people properly. And I was with that group for 10 years and moved from Texas, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, to California. Never been to California hardly in my life, and so again, big shock, big change, but again was fantastic for me.
So these guys, would they run their meetings and openly talk about religion, or it was kind of like everyone? So how was that within the business? Because for many businesses, God does not come into the boardroom at all. So
No, it was very clear that this was a godly Christian business, and they made that very clear to everyone that was hired. Back then, it was a little more acceptable, where you could probably get away with a little bit more than you can today. So that was one of the people were very clear on that. And if you wanted to be part of the company, you certainly didn't have to be a Christian or have to have faith, but you knew coming in that was going to be part of the structure of this company. And it was very successful. We had Maquiladora back in those days down in Ciudad Acuña, Del Rio, Texas, on the border. So we had 500 people across the border, 200 people on the U.S. side, and then had our headquarters in Fort Worth, Texas. And we did very well. And of course, I moved to California and started that territory, and we had distributors in that area, so I worked with them. But we had a manufacturing company where we manufactured disposables for surgery. So it was all about healthcare and then selling those products through hospitals. Business. I'm
curious, did you feel at any point that the bottom line was just not that important because, okay, we're doing kingdom work, or it was, no, we also need to make a profit because we have hundreds of mouths to feed, and if
right.
someone's not living up, that's also important. We have to sometimes yes, you have to cut somebody because unfortunately they're not doing right, and they can't sink the whole ship. That's not right.
Yeah, no, it was very much profit oriented, no doubt about it. I mean, it was tough because in that business back then there were low margins on certain products, right? And so it was all about profitability as far as making sure the company did well, because like you said, we had mouths to feed and people that their lives depended on it. So you had to be profitable, and it was like any company. You're cutting people, you're cutting product lines that weren't profitable, trying to figure out how to get better margins, all those kind of things. So it was a great experience for me, learning just business in general. Of course, I was on the sales side of it, and then the sales and marketing side as the company grew. But again, it was all about manufacturing properly, operationally, getting things done properly, but then and being profitable. And sold that company to.
Yeah, I'm curious if you ever had a situation that anything comes to mind where it was like, what would seem to be the better business decision, or not even better business decision, but the more profitable business decision would have been in one direction, but the ethical decision was in a different direction, and they went in a certain direction. They went in, did you ever see that either there or, I guess you've had future businesses, some situation like that?
Yeah, there's no doubt that you could cut corners in areas that would probably make you more profitable. And you have to make a decision. Are we going to do the right thing, or are we going to do the profitable thing? And sometimes those aren't the same. And I think, quite honestly, in my world, I believe God honors that. If you do the right thing, and I've learned that in a lot of ways the hard way, right? Because you could cut corners. A company years after this, we sold, and we told that company, you have to use this particular device and material, otherwise this product does not work well. And the first thing they did was get a cheaper material to do it with, and the whole thing blew up. And we were very adamant that you've got to do this right, and otherwise it doesn't work. And I again learned that the hard way, that if you try to cut corners, it's probably in the end going to hurt you more than it's going to help you.
Yeah, so it's always it's always one of those things where, okay, you have that decision, and often as entrepreneurs and as CEOs at the top, people don't often know the decisions that are going into, going down the line, and when you might have given up tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars or even millions of dollars because this was not going to be a deal that you felt was going to be blessed. I know. I remember when we were first starting, we had a non-compete, and there was a certain case which we could have taken. A client came to us, and it was a very, very gray area, and I could have made the claim, and it really would have boosted those early days of the business that are,
Right.
You're eating out of cans because you just want to make it by, and it would have made a huge difference. And we chose not to take that case because we had a contract, and you are being watched. Whether you're able to, whether the camera's on you or not, you're being watched. So.
Right. And it's not always an easy decision, because you especially early on when you're starting a company. I'm just about to start my sixth company that I've been involved with startups, and I love starting things up. And even my business currently, we develop surgery centers and hospitals, so every project is a new business in essence. So I love doing that, but it's early on when you're starting, it can be really tough because you're trying to survive and make things work, and sometimes it's really much easier to try to cut corners and not do the right thing, and it's very tempting. Good news, bad news is I think I've learned over the years that eventually that'll catch up with you. It's not a smart business decision. Not only is it not a good decision from an ethical standpoint, but it's typically not a good business decision either. So you kind of learn that, I think, the hard way.
Yeah, you could sometimes make a buck, and if that's your goal today. But if you're looking to build long-term relationships, it's talk about coaches. My coach used to always talk about. He said, you never know what's going to be, and whether a guy smashes you over the head or says your mama, you just walk away. And he always used to tell us the story where he was in some sort of summer league game, and the ref called him. He lost his temper and threw him out of the game. And lo and behold, he goes to get his first job, and who's sitting on the other side of the table? It's that ref. So the ref was forgiving, but he said, you see that the lessons that you learn in church or in synagogue, and if you don't take them out to the sports field or out to the business, it's the same underlying principles that are there, no matter what area of life that you're conducting yourself in.
Yeah, it's like similar to that. It's all about relationships, right? And that's what our business, the medical healthcare world, is very small in comparison, and so you end up running into the similar, same people, and no matter kind of what you're doing, they just have a different name tag. Maybe they've gone to a different company or working with a different group or whatever, but you run into the same people over and over again, and it's all about reputation. If you have a good reputation, you'll be able to do business with them again, and if you don't, then you won't. And it's you learn that either the hard way or the good way, and it happens over and over again. And the good news is, like now, as I'm starting another company, I've got really good relationships that I've had for the last 20 years, and now I know, oh gosh, I can call this person for this situation or this person for that situation. And if you maintain those relationships in a good way and a healthy way, then people will typically help you, go out of their way to help you if you've helped them in your past. And I think it's critical for success of any business, especially startups.
Yeah, no, you always need those relationships, and you never want to burn bridges. Sometimes wildfires start on those bridges, unfortunately, and there's, but that's people. Like anytime you're dealing with people. You're going to have that. So I mean, you mentioned your father and fatherly wisdom. Do you have anything that came from from your father as far as that you really take home like almost on a daily basis with you?
Yeah, I think again, I saw him. Again, it's typically what he does or you do versus what you say, and so my dad got up at 5 o'clock every morning. Went to work. He had his own business. It was older then because he had started the business, years before. So the building was older and all that, but it was always very clean. I mean, he would get up and clean and work. It worked very hard. He was there early in the morning and late at night, and so just that whole work ethic was, quite honestly, that's what he taught me, and that's what I've realized in my own business. It's different. Needless to say, I'm in front of computers or doing other things, but it's early and it's late, and it's like they say, when you have your own business, you never quit, right? So that's kind of what I guess I learned from him is. I've learned I want to enjoy myself. I want to do what's right. But the good news is I can. I know it's going to take a lot of hard work to get whatever done, and that's just part of what you do. I was just in a meeting earlier today with a young guy, and that's kind of where I'm at in my life at this stage. Is I have one of my oldest son is working with me in the business, has been with me for 8 or 9 years now, and so my role in life now is to help the younger generation and hopefully give them some advice, and quite honestly, my dad probably worked too hard, right? So what I'm trying to do is more of a balance, and I love my sons and I play pickleball. We go. My younger son's a golfer, so we'll go play golf and spend time together. There's so much you can learn about your son, and probably I'm assuming he learns about me when we're playing 3 or 4 hours of golf. And boys, young men don't typically talk a lot, but on the golf course he kind of loosens up, and I learn a lot about what's going on in his life. And it's the same way with my older son who's in business with me. We spend a lot of time together. I love it, and just the interaction with that, and having the ability to impart things to him that I've learned over the years. And I'm sure he gets tired of it and goes, "Dad, okay, enough." But,
right. Enough with the preaching. Enough with the preaching. We got that on Sunday.
Right.
Let the.
Yeah. So I try not to preach too much. So, but it's been. I'm just blessed because it's to have him as part of the business is really quite amazing, and of course for me it's all about the next generations and how do we pass on what God's given us. He's blessed me beyond my expectations, so I'm very thankful. And how do I pass that on to the next generation? And my goal now is to help his friends. I've grown up with his friends now that are now young men and have their own families, and helping them develop their passion, whatever that might be, whatever type of business or passion that they have, is helping them develop that, and kind of helping that next generation. So that's what I get excited about in the years to come.
Yeah, no, it's definitely giving that over and helping those businesses. I love consulting with people, and they're like, is it okay? Can I call you? I'm like, yeah, sure, anytime. They're like, yeah, are you busy? With something. It's like, no, this is way more interesting to hear about your business often than obviously you have to keep the wheels greased of whatever you're doing and keep things moving, but it's always that if you think you can help somebody and bring that knowledge, but I think it's so critical.
Well, and to learn to help them not have to learn the hard way like maybe I did or we did, so that I can save them some years of grief and anguish to not do some of the silly things that I did back in the day. So, and probably still do today, but try to minimize those is critical.
Yeah, no, it's for sure. So your business now. So what is this? Tell us about some of these newer ventures that you're working on, and what do you see as far as the future of technology, AI. How's that impacting some of the work that you're doing?
Yeah, I'm definitely not the AI guy. So if you want the AI specialist, talk to somebody else. But I think that I think there's going to be a huge opportunity for that and a platform for that in the healthcare field. We're doing more. We develop surgery centers and hospitals, and these are smaller, hospitals that are 16 bed, 20 beds, 50 beds, that kind of thing, or surgery centers, medical office buildings that would have surgery center, maybe imaging center in it. More and more of our business is going to the outpatient area, right? So cases that you'd have to stay in the hospital for 3 or 4 days, 10 or 12, 15 years ago, you're going home the same day. And so that's the focus for us, is how do we get more and more involved in the outpatient area and help and services. The other thing that's become a big thing for us is behavioral health, and wellness. And so I think the thing I get excited about is I think the payers, and for us it's the government that funds a lot of the healthcare in the U.S. and really all over, I guess. But I think they've realized that if they can keep people healthy and well, it's a lot less expensive than waiting until they get in the hospital or the surgery center to get things done. So I think more and more the focus is on wellness and health, and how do we keep people healthy and a good lifestyle, whether that be through exercise or diet plans and those type of things. And I think the AI can help us, research those kind of things and 10 times faster than what we were ever able to do before. And so for us, that's kind of more and more the push is behavioral health. How much my mindset and my outlook impacts my health, and then am I exercising every day? What am I eating? And of course, different cultures have much better eating habits. For us in Texas, it's more like, why don't you not eat 5 chicken fried steaks this week? Let's cut that back and maintain some health, and maybe mashed potatoes and gravy. Let's not quite as much this week. So, but I think people are more and more aware of that, and I think that's going to be a huge factor in the future, because, as you know, that there's, at least in the U.S., there's so many of us that are getting older, and if we don't take care of ourselves, it's not going to be. It'll be very ugly and very expensive.
Do you think about, I guess, a biblical connection to what you're doing as far as the health and the wellness of the body, in terms of what you're doing? Meaning, God gave us a body, He blew into Adam a soul. So a lot of obviously what we do in synagogue and church, and often what we think about when we pray, is the soul, but the body is the vessel with which God gave us. And how do you think about that within your business, or just in life in general?
Yeah, I mean, needless to say, God says we're the temple, we're His temple, so I want to take care of it. And I, trying to exercise 3 or 4 days a week and doing things healthy makes total sense. And I try to include and impress that upon the people that work with me. And needless to say, since we're in healthcare, that's always, top of mind for everyone. But I think as much as important as that is, and maybe even more important, of course, is your spirit and just having, for me, it's prayer time in the mornings, making sure that's done, and encouraging my people to do the same thing, because if you don't have that time where you're in meditation or whatever it is, and of course for me it's prayer time with the Lord, but if you don't have that, I think it's very difficult to have a balanced life and a healthy life. And so that's always been part of, especially like we were talking about, making my bed every morning, getting up, shining my shoes, whatever it might be, setting out my clothes. Part of that's spending time with God and meditation and asking for wisdom, because every day there's something that comes up that you don't expect, right? I mean, it's that's part of the fun, and part of the downside is there's always something that's going to come up, whether it's with people or situations, and it's like, Lord, give me wisdom, because I need it. I think the older I get, the more I realize how little I know, and so I need more and more wisdom every day. And the things that I said would never happen to me or to my family, or you never say never, because you just don't know what life's going to hold. The good news is we know where the answers come from, and that's, to me, is it's incredibly satisfying, because I know where I can go for the help. It's a big deal.
Yeah, no, it's always something in terms of the vessel and making sure the vessel stays healthy, because if you're sick, you're gonna have a hard time praying. They tell a joke where when we talk about prayer, we talk about its service of the heart, right? So a boy comes to his rabbi and says, "No, I can't pray today. I have a headache." He goes, "What are you talking about? Prayer is of the heart. So your head is irrelevant." But it does become very difficult if you're laid up in a hospital for days or weeks on end because you're not taking care of it. That it's going to be something that adversely affects your religious practice. You might, when you do pray, you might be praying even harder than you would otherwise, but it's certainly less conducive to be in a hospital or that type of situation. So I think health is really up there, and it's great in terms of what you're doing to keep try to keep people healthy. As we know, obviously there's a obesity epidemic in America, which is something.
For sure. Well, in mental health too, I think is a big deal, because that's I was listening to a podcast yesterday that was talking about how just mental health has become a huge issue in the U.S. and again, I believe that's because we've gotten away from the ordinances of God. I mean, and it's just if we don't get back to that, I think it's just going to continue to get worse. And there's so many factions now, especially here in the U.S., that are going against everything that we stand for from a biblical standpoint, and we've got to get back to that, because I think that's causing a lot of the mental health issues that our country has and people have, is they just don't spend enough time meditating and seeking the Creator, because it's that's, to me, is what life's all about. I mean, that's what we're made for. That's what we're designed for, and I think the more we get away from that, the harder life's going to be.
Yeah, no, it's there's a book by Abigail Schreier called Bad Therapy, and she said when it comes to mental health, when it comes to therapy, just realize that there is a potential downside and potential risk. Not everybody, just like not every single time you're sick do you pop a pill. Not every single time you're slightly depressed or you have not severe things, but doesn't mean you necessarily run to a therapist. And very often the challenges that a person has should just be something where you go to your father, you go to your mother, and you say, what do you think? You go to a sibling, you go to a friend, and by having this breakdown of the home, where America divorce rate I think is over 50% at this point, and you have many families that are not staying together because they don't have this common. I think a lot of it does come from the biblical bond, but it's like, we're going to stay within this marriage. And by those things fraying, again, once the family falls apart, the faith very often is quick to follow, and it just leads to a downward spiral in terms of a person's ability to handle their own mental challenges, because we all have challenges. The question is, okay, I had challenges, but I went to my father, my mother. I said, "What do you think?"
Well, and I think that's where, honestly, our businesses can help as well, because the businesses I've been involved with are almost more like family, right? So, they're smaller businesses, of course, as we start, and then as you grow them, and I think having those services available to your people is a big deal, and allowing the people within the organization to help each other. That's always been a big part of what I've experienced. Like I said, the two guys that hired me right out of college, they were like my big brothers, mentors, almost father figures for me, and changed my life in a very positive, good way. Not only in business things, but just personal. things, and I was very close to them, and have several mentors along the way that have been key to my success and to my health, because it's we need other people, and so I think that's where, even in business, that's why I'm excited about helping my son and his friends and the people in the network that God's given me to, not only be there as a business mentor and helper, but just life in general. Because like you said, it's sometimes they'll open up to me as a kind of a father figure that's not their father, more so than they're going to go to their own father, because they're just not comfortable with that. So I always try to make sure that, hey, anytime you've got issues, I'm here. Let me know. I'm happy to help. And it's I think that's a big part of what we can do to help our people, but to help the people in our network.
Yeah, I mean that's also you talk about community. A lot of time, there's a book that came out also called Bowling Alone, where people used to go and they would hang out with the guys, or they would be in church and they'd be with the community. And the younger generation, their communities are now much more online, which and less in person. And I know as you talked about your two fathers, or I had also in the community 10 or 15 of my father's friends that I could go to about this or that, and you'd see them after synagogue on a Saturday morning, and they would always have what we call a kiddush, which is sit around. There'd be some food, some pretzels and potato chips and so whatever, and we would hang around, and you could sit and you could talk, and these were just people that you grew up with, and you saw the way that they acted, and they were just fine, upstanding people who really did, as you talked about, hard work and ethical people that I would be proud to connect with any of them.
Yeah, and that's where I even like the team sports thing. I think, like my younger son is a golfer. It's an individual sport, where my older son was a baseball player, and just the difference in having a team mentality versus an individual mentality, and having that community, I think it's just critical. And like with my younger son, I'm trying to encourage him to get more involved in whatever it is. He just got a job with a big company, and I'm like, hey, join their golf team, join whatever, so that you can have that community around you in this business, because it's critical to have people and friends, and that's how you because my younger son graduated from college during COVID, and for 4 years he worked with the company. He never went to the office. It was all online, and he's a financial guy, and I'm like, it just breaks my heart to see that he didn't make those relationships. He didn't have access to those people in the office, and I think that's been a big issue for these young people that have gone through that. And his last semester in college was back home because he couldn't be in the dorm, couldn't be at school, and then went right into business from there, and spent 4 years on front of a computer, so I mean, to have that interaction in the office and people around, I think it's a huge deal. And again, I think we're kind of going through this now with this new startup company is, how much online are we going to do? How much remote are we going to do? How much are we going to spend time in the office? And then people are like, oh, we don't need an office. I say, yes, we do. We got to have an office, because we got to get together, even if it's 2 or 3 days a week, or however we wanted to. We determined that, but to have interaction face to face is a big deal. And I hope and pray we get back to that somewhat. I don't think it's ever going to be 5 days a week in the office anymore, because people just don't want to do that. But I think at least 2 or 3 days, and having that interaction and not just completely remote is a big deal.
Well, you talked about team sports, so in Israel, so we have much less of a focus on sports. America, it's you're spending your Sunday sitting watching football, and if you're I'm into hockey or baseball, whatever, you're very, very sports oriented, and Israel has a little bit of it, but much less so. And I was talking to my brother-in-law, who's also a sports guy, and and my son was maybe maybe like 5-6 years old at the time, and I was a little bit lamenting that there's no sports, and he's like, "What are you talking about? Every kid's got to go to the Army. There's no bigger camaraderie and working together than that. Don't worry about it. You'll get plenty of sports time. Maybe a little bit older, but
Right.
So.
No, I got a little taste of that at the Air Force Academy. You bond very quickly with those people, and it's because you're going through some very difficult times. It's good.
Yeah. So we'll start wrapping up. I just wanted to ask in terms of philanthropy and giving forward. I don't like saying giving back because a lot of times business is in many ways that you contribute so much more to the economy, to people's lives, as we've just discussed. But how do you think about what types of things do you like to get involved with and to give to?
Yeah, we've been, of course, very involved in our church and give there. And the thing I love about our church is we're very globally minded. And so there's one of my best friends in the church is one of the global pastors. And so there a lot of what we do is overseas and of course in communities here in the U.S. helping underserved people and people that need help and whatever it might be. So we want to always do that. Of course, in giving back, again, I love helping these younger people, whatever their dream is, whatever it is, whether it's business or whatever it might be that's in their heart to do. Retreat centers, whatever it might be to help people. We want to do that and have been very involved with that. I also have lead 2 different men's groups that we talk about family, we talk about business, but it becomes a very tight knit group. One group is 10 guys together, and the others like 8 or 9 guys together. We've been meeting together for 8 or 9 years on a monthly or bi-monthly basis, and to me that's part of my giving back because I love that. I want to help not only these younger people but just people in my sphere that have been involved. And then of course in the healthcare world, like I said, it's very small, so I try to help other people in my healthcare world start their business or be a part of however I can help them. And it's so funny because early on I always you have this, oh gosh, I don't want to, I'm going to stay in my little world. I don't want to give away my trade secrets and all those kind of things. And now I'm like, who cares? This is silly. There's plenty of room for everybody, right? So let me help them in any way I can. And if it ends up helping my competitor, then it helps my competitor. But that's just the way it is. But yeah, to me, it's giving forward not only in financial things, but just information. And what I've realized is a lot of the people I thought were competitors actually we help each other, right? And so it's just, I've really tried to change my mindset on that and always learning about new things like AI and other things. I try to be open with that just to say, hey, how can we make this good? How can we make it better? So
at the time that this recording, this coming week, we're going to be going into Rosh Hashanah, which is the Jewish New Year. And according to our tradition, God determines on the beginning of the year what you're going to make for the year. So it's really it shouldn't stress us out. It often still does, but I'm saying in a cosmic sense, God has decided over the course of this coming year how we're going to do financially. So we have to just recognize that whether or not I help my competitor, that's already something that God has ordained early on in the year, and so I might as well be what we call a mensch, which I'm sure you're familiar with that word, is just being an upstanding person and try to help. Doesn't always mean you have to help the competitor get over the line, but to certainly be cordial and friendly and never to burn those bridges as you talked about. So anyway, Keith, this has been a real pleasure. Thank you for taking the time and being here today. God should continue to bless your efforts in everything that you do, and continue to be able to to give and to help others build their businesses, and to give you the clarity and the wisdom that you so seek.
Thank you very much. It's great visiting with you. Thank you for the time, and any way we can help, we'd love to.
Okay, all the best. God bless.
Thank you.